Can you give us a sense of the desperation that businesses, and those businesses particularly in New South Wales and Victoria, are feeling at the moment?
Look, I think that when we look at the costs of how this lockdown's going, I mean, they're now in excess of over $10 billion just simply because, we've had such a prolonged lockdown in what is a state of our largest consuming group in the country. And I must say that from our membership and certainly from industry, I haven't heard the sense of desperation that I'm hearing and have started to hear over the last 4 weeks. It's becoming very concerning. This is not just small businesses. This is national brands saying, we are really struggling right now, and it is very, very hard to hang on.
Particularly when they've got rent to pay and landlords aren't budging.
Look, absolutely. I mean, at this point in time, we know that certainly costs are still there for many of these retailers, whether it in some cases is cost of labour, certainly their cost of leasing and tenancy is there as well. And, many of them are in negotiations with their landlords. We haven't seen, a mandatory code or anything like that come out of New South Wales as yet. And certainly it is something that our membership is definitely in discussions about at this point, because I think just we don't know how long this is going to go on for.
Yeah, and you've got to be careful not to have a crack at the landlords, because they are business people too. They need to make money. So what are the options that are needed to get by here?
Look, this is a big thing here. So when we saw the code come in, I guess, at the beginning of, what we'll call the COVID-19 period, the property industry was the only industry that wasn't subsidised in any way by any government to provide waivers and deferrals to businesses. And of course, that has taken its toll. There was some land tax relief, but for many of them, it was very difficult for them to actually access that. And right now, for us, I guess, we have to weigh this up, because it is an ecosystem. We do need the landlords to survive, but we absolutely need our retailers to survive as well.
Yeah.
So, there's got to be something on both sides here.
There are tax breaks available to those, and the New South Wales government has done that, but for whatever reason, it's not working. You've got the Service New South Wales app that is, it appears to be flatlined at the moment. Do you think that they have underestimated the problem, the New South Wales government at least?
Look, I think that most governments have underestimated the problem when it comes to lockdowns. I mean, we know that this is certainly a health strategy. And yes, in most cases, it does mean that we get control of the health problem, but it's definitely not an economic strategy. And certainly the longer this goes on, the grave concerns that we have for the federal economy, because the closer we get to Christmas, and that's the biggest time for our retailers.
Yeah. And so what are they doing? What options do they have? They're closed up, they're shut up, they've got heaps of stock available. What do they do?
So right now, many of them operating dark stores where they can. So they're doing click and collect. They are moving stock around the country. If there are locations that are trading, they are starting to look at marking down their stock, which of course means that they are, shrinking their margins on this. We do have some big sales days approaching, after payday, for instance. It's likely that they will broaden what they put onto those sales days just to simply clear as much stock as possible. And they're renegotiating with their suppliers. And this is where it's got that flow-on effect within the ecosystem, because now we're seeing suppliers in distress as well. When
you've got so many of those businesses as well that are franchises, so they're paying 4, 5, 6 different sets of rent, and it's just not sustainable at the moment when their revenue has been brought down so much. What are you expecting in terms of bankruptcies? Do you have a level or a percentage out the back of this? I mean, they just can't survive.
Look, I've certainly heard some numbers thrown around that have been, quite high. I guess the difficulty is that there have been some safe harbour laws put in place. We have seen a delay in a whole raft of things because of deferrals of rent or deferrals of loans and things like that. But in some circumstances for small businesses, some of the estimates I've seen are over 70% in terms of closures in certain locations. And it just depends on, I guess, are you in one of those really affected LGAs? What does the human movement look like? Do you have stores in other states? What kind of relationship do you have with your landlords or your suppliers? It's very, very hard. But those small businesses are certainly ones that, we just believe will not come back. And of course, people's houses are attached to these businesses.
And that safety net on an evictions that runs out in New South Wales in 8 or 9 days, that's surely got to be extended.
Look, we would definitely hope that it would be extended, and we understand that the government's currently looking at
Yeah.
what they are going to do with leasing. And look, our retailers are screaming, so we are certainly waiting on bated breath for them to announce something, because I think both sides are absolutely hurting.
Okay. Dominique Lamb, appreciate your time. Talk to you soon.